Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone, and nice to meet all of you. I have the fortune of having Moses with me today to talk more about Xendit and your journey from a startup to something a regional champion. Please join me again to ask to learn more about the business, and we'll definitely want to get more of your insight and experiences, Moses. Maybe just to quickly kick off a kind of discussion. How do you think about the journey of Xendit, kind of the key challenges and some of the lessons you learned as you expanded from single market to becoming of a regional platform?
So I'll start with some background about who Xendit is. Nice to see some familiar faces, and thank you for being willing to listen to the story yet again. We started originally as a Berkeley versus Stanford Bitcoin hackathon many years ago, and got lucky to be the first Indonesian-focused company into YC in 2015. We started as a Bitcoin remittance business, pivoted to then a e-wallet, and then got 160,000 users within about 4 or 5 months. Then we pivoted to what we do now, which is providing payments, money in, helping merchants accept payments, and then money out, helping merchants send out payments all across Southeast Asia. At the time, it was just Indonesia, but now we process about $45 billion across all across the region. As we were looking to expand, we've kind of crystallized into a framework that kind of works for us. 3 things that we need to see to move into the next geography. One is, and an overarching principle. Overarching principle being Warren Buffett's, be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful. So come 2020, as the world starts shutting down, we go into a situation where we're 50% travel. Within a month, our volumes drop on both travel and our other big industry, which was fintech. We drop 80% business in a month. And so the world's shutting down, and we thought, great, let's go be greedy when everyone's scared, including ourselves. And so in that moment, we decided to go look for somewhere else to go. And so the framework for us has become 3 things. One is greed, second is fear, and third is the right team. So greed being a customer pulls us into a new market and says, can you please fix things in Philippines the same way you fix things in Indonesia? In this case, it was Grab. It was Grab that was pulling us to the Philippines. The fear part was Y Combinator has this idea that the people you should be most scared of are people that look like you, people who can execute, people who can work the regulations, work with the big families, win new customers. And so I'd helped some friends get into YC that were building for the Philippines, realized that they were going to be quite good, and so was actually scared of them, and so game theory said we had to go. And the final part was just to find the right team, and it took me a year to find the right person. But once we had those 3 things, then we said, let's go launch. So April or May 2020, we launched in the Philippines, fully remote, never having really been there. But within 2 years, we were one of the biggest players.
Just to further elaborate on that, give me a kind of experience in different markets in Southeast Asia. Any snippets or any color about how you think about localization within Indonesia or versus the Philippines, for example?
Yeah, our view from the very beginning was that there's going to be, in payments world, there's going to be global players that win global contracts. But the opportunity in some ways complex as Southeast Asia was that we would need to have hyperlocal or regional winners. And when we look at payments 10 years later, I think that's played out. In Africa, you have a set of winners. In Latin America, you have a set of winners. And in Southeast Asia, we have a set of winners. But that wasn't so obvious in 2015 when we started. But our thesis was hyperlocal matters, and one of my favorite examples when I speak to the Americans is to turn right in Jakarta, you turn left and you do a U-turn. You do that just outside here from Senayan City if you want to turn right. So understanding how Southeast Asia operates and being able to be hyperlocal mattered a lot. So when we went into new countries, same thesis. I think there's our American friends who've gone in American style. I think that hasn't worked. They've pulled out of countries, they've pulled back, they sometimes get licenses, but they can't operate them. For us, it's been how do we make sure that we are understanding regulators, understanding the big families that run our countries, and then understanding business, sales, marketing, product, all those things.
Okay. Oh, that's very helpful. And I think one thing to highlight too in our markets, I think government regulations always play a very important role as well. So particularly for all the various markets you're in, any, again, color, or how do you think about working with government regulations? Is that something a challenge or a strength you think that helps you in terms of regional expansion?
Yeah, the way we think, I'm ex-consulting, so I think of everything in threes. I think there's three kinds of government folks that we try to engage as we think about entering a new country. Fintech, fortunately or unfortunately, is heavily regulated. I think fortunately in many ways. So for us, we think about three levels. One is, as a country, where's the country going? What are their priorities? And each country in Southeast Asia has different things it cares about at the country level. So we can show up to the regulator and say, where do you want to take the country over the next 4 years, or whatever the administrative term is. The next set is then, I'll call it generically the C-suite, but the managers and what are they trying to achieve and legacies they're trying to leave, and how can we play into that? So for example here, BI Fast launching, or Chris, each market has its own. And then finally at the working level, the ones that we have to engage with every day, what do they care about? What are they trying to protect? And in each country, that's also different. Here, there's different periods where lending was a big focus for a while, or different things at different times. And so how can we ally ourselves with those goals? I think that nuanced approach has worked compared to some of our regional friends that send their people from Silicon Valley that have never spoken the language or operated in markets. I think the nuanced approach works much better.
I agree with that, and you talked about localization, hyperlocal, that's probably going to be very important. And you did, I think, talk about the ecosystem you're building, a lot of partners as well. So how would you think about, in terms of regional expansion, around what you're doing organically and building that ecosystem? Who are your key partners that you think of that would be important to the Xendit ecosystem?
Yeah, when I explain this to the Americans, a lot of our investors come from Silicon Valley, which is why I refer to them. A lot of what I've said is you have to do more than just do the business side well. You have to do the regulator stuff well, and you have to do the big family stuff well. And I think uniquely as Southeast Asians, we understand that. And I think starting in Indonesia was a comparative advantage as we went to other markets to understand those three things have to exist at the same time. With regulators, when we enter a market, we say, what do you want? How do you want us to enter? You want us to buy? You want us to partner? You want us to JV? Who should we work with? Then on the second part, which is the big families, all our countries are run by big families, understanding those various dynamics and what we can do to work with them and make sure there's the pie is kind of shared between all the different players. And then the third part is product and ops and all those things that we normally talk about. And I think that those nuances has helped us kind of jump from market to market. And I think that's why, for those of us who are building companies from Indonesia, why we have a comparative advantage to, let's say, folks coming from other places, is we understand already how to build something hyperlocal. And if we're able to abstract that into meta frameworks that we can then take to other markets, we have a comparative advantage compared to those coming from outside our region or from markets that don't understand nuances.
And to add, I think where the local incumbents will care about is you're not just helping them lower costs, you're actually growing the pie for them, right? It's as we kind of think through kind of the Southeast Asia dynamics, what you're doing here, it's not just a disruption play. In some ways, there is a way to actually grow the TAM that kind of creates a win-win situation for everyone here.
Yeah, I'm a massive believer that the TAM, the competition, the way we talk about competition internally, is partly, I spent a short time at Amazon and we weren't allowed to talk about competitors. We were only allowed to talk about customers. My refinement of that is customer obsessed, competitor informed. So our goal when we enter is not to just come in and bring the price down, classic Asian play. I think in every market we've built something that doesn't exist. So 10 years ago when we started here, we were the first for building APIs for doing payouts. I think that's what we're known for. I think we're still the most reliable. I think we're best at that, best in class. In Philippines, when we entered, we built direct debit, the ability to pull from a bank account. We're still the only ones that can do that. We had to go negotiate with each bank to let us be able to pull from their bank account. All the security, all the chargebacks, all the nuances that come with building out that product. But being able to build a direct debit pull from a bank account didn't exist before and only exists through us. So new infrastructure. And then in the last year and a half, we've expanded to Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam. In all those countries, we're building things that have never existed before. And I think that's been a big part of our play, is to say, when we launched in Indonesia, fintech wasn't a thing. I think we played some tiny bit in helping fintech grow. In Philippines, I think we're leveling the playing field for having lots of folks to be able to compete, whether it's retail or fintech or remittances. In each of our markets, we're enabling whole new digital economies to begin. And that's our goal, is that we're increasing the TAM over time.
Yeah, that's very helpful. And then to catch up with that TAM expansion, so to speak, what's your experience being in scaling in different countries, though? Is there operational challenges, anything you would think about as well?
Yeah, we wanted to be regional from day one, so we made a set of decisions that we believed would be inoptimal in the short run, but optimal in some regional structure. And we also learned from bigger companies that came before us to watch how they did regional and local. And I think what we decided is we kind of want to be a regional player who maybe is not perfectly optimized for any single country, but can go take that model into many places. So for example, we make decisions like, on Slack, we will speak English. Inoptimal in the short run, but now that we are in 6 different countries, 5 different languages, and many more sub-local languages, now people can look history and learn from lessons in the past without having to bridge more than English as a language. Another example that we had, which is straight from Amazon, is Amazon has this idea of a 6-pager, which is everything is written in document long form, not in PowerPoint. Ex-BCG love PowerPoints, but learning to like documents, because documents are easier for the average person to get good at. PowerPoints, tricky people like consultants can go and make things up and make things look pretty. So we made a decision that everything is going to be in long form document form. It also then allows introverts, so in a society where there's a lot of kind of less loud people, or where different cultures, some are louder, some are softer, we do the Amazon meeting style where when we show up for, let's say, an hour-long meeting, first 10 minutes, we are reading the document and commenting. And everyone's expected to comment, even the quietest person. So the quietest person has a voice in the room before even the meeting starts. So we made these culture decisions on purpose from day one, which were inoptimal in the short run because it kind of forces, instead of just tribal knowledge going around the water cooler, you force people to write things down. But the idea being that if we set the culture right, it is good for scaling over some long-run basis.
Yeah. And that's, I guess, the struggle too. It's you have kind of multiple teams spread across Southeast Asia as well. So, all these online platforms and the documentation and adding structure would be actually very important as well to make sure everyone's aligned in terms of key objectives. Okay. So as we think about then, around kind of what the future for Xendit is, right? So payments, regional platform, scale, growth, be really strong in terms of brand awareness out there, ecosystem being built up. What's kind of the next evolution, if any, of Xendit? Any further new products? Any kind of, what do you think of Xendit 2.0, 3.0 looks like?
I think the opportunity for someone like us in the region, I think we're in a very rare spot, which is you look at B2B companies at scale in Southeast Asia, there's so few. There's so few who can truly say we have mastered more than one country or we are top 2 in more than one country. And there's very few who are able to then take all these disparate places and unite them into a single platform. When we look at B2B. When you look at consumer, in the consumer world, whoever is able to do that, massive TAM, massive enterprise value. And I think that's our opportunity, is that fundamentally where we currently look purely like payments today, over time we look more like an SAP Oracle, but not for SaaS, not for CRM, but for things where it is digital infrastructure where local matters. Anything where regulations is required or local nuances matter. So eKYC, digital signatures, credit risk, data, KYC, AML, remittances, FX, et cetera, there's lots of pieces of digital infrastructure that must exist for our economies to become service economies and digital economies. And platform like Xendit allows, we already have distribution into some of the biggest enterprises and some of the fastest growing mid-market in the region. If we have that distribution, we can then push more and more infrastructure that our countries need to get to the next level. So I think that's what's exciting for us. We're known today as a payments business, we do that well. We have a lending business, we've originated hundreds of millions of dollars worth of loans. I think there's more for us to build there across the whole region. We have a cards issuing product that we're launching, that's launched and growing fast. We have an FX business that's launched and growing fast. We have a bank accounts as a service business, e-wallets as a service business, small KYC business that's growing. So lots of different bits of infrastructure that Southeast Asia needs and doesn't have today. We want to build into a single platform where you connect once. You're an Indonesian company, you connect once. You can build for Indonesia and scale well here. As soon as you decide, hey, we want to expand somewhere else, whether that is to the world, because we do 190 countries for Traveloka and Ticket. If you want to go to the world, we can do that. If you want to expand into other bits of Southeast Asia, we can do that. And if you want to provide any kind of embedded finance or financial services, we can do that fully white labeled and for B2B. So I think that's the opportunity space in front of us is still so big compared to where we are today.
And hopefully you get, grow into, like you said, a global platform as well. That's probably the next evolution going out, out of Southeast Asia as well, sounds like. I just want to pause here and open up the floor as well. There are mics at the back. If anyone's interested in asking questions as well, definitely would love to hear more from Moses and any reactions to your questions.
How do you adapt with Southeast Asia condition with agriculture sector? With there's more people like farmers, they still haven't got any good access on banking.
Yeah, the question was around how can we help folks who don't have access or currently have a lot of access to financial services, for example, farmers, right? So the way I think about our business is where we think we can be good at is helping folks who are, people who are building platforms and regional platforms to access financial services and embed them in their platforms. So in the case of farmers, I don't know that we're the best place to go serve each farmer directly. But what we do have in our book, both here in Malaysia and Thailand, we have ag tech customers who then are putting embedded finance into their products to then go help use cases. So us as a B2B player, I think our goal is we want to help level up the whole ecosystem, and by doing that enables folks like those who want to go help farmers, or those who want to help sustainability, or I was talking to palm oil folks in Malaysia, we can help them provide financial services onwards. So that's how I view is we're kind of a macro player, we're kind of like macroeconomics. We level up the ecosystem that allows new players to come in, build products that never existed, build products that they couldn't before, and then they can go serve those end use cases. So that's how I think about it. And I think we've seen that, like in our time, consumer lending rates when we started have dropped like 10x since we started. I think maybe annoying to the remittance players, but remittances have dropped in price since we started because we kind of level the playing field and allow Southeast Asians to compete in the same way that global players could.
Hello, Moses. My name is Angga from MySkill. So we are an upskilling startup from Indonesia. We also use Xendit for our payment. I'd like to ask about how do you define product market fit at the beginning? Because currently we are building a platform for educator and also creator to sell their skill. So they can sell podcasts, ebooks, courses, and many more. And then they transact with Xendit in our platform, by the way. But how do you define the product market fit at the beginning? Thank you.
Yeah, great question. So product market fit comes from, mid through Y Combinator. So Y Combinator is a 3-month program, and 6 weeks in we were failing. We had this Bitcoin remittance idea, it wasn't working. 6 weeks in, I remember office hours with a guy called Justin Khan. Justin Khan is the founder of Twitch, sold to Amazon for $1 billion. And I said to him this exact question, because we didn't have product market fit. I said, what does product market fit feel like? And he said 2 things to me. 1, you know when you know. Totally useless. Number 2, it's like drinking from a fire hose. And I wasn't sure what it meant. But what we saw is when we pivoted into the B2B stuff, like what we do today, 9 months in, what we noticed was the problems that we were facing every single day was somewhere in our system, things were breaking. One day, our ledger went down very early in our life, it broke. API gateway went down, it broke. Internal interfaces or APIs between services, it broke. All these internal systems and processes broke. And our problems, I had reflected and was like, hang on, our problem is not that we don't have customers. We had 2 salespeople for our first 2 years, and all they did was pick up the phone because people would say, hey, my friends want to use you. People would message us and be like, my friend told me that I have to use Xendit. And so about 9 months to 2.5 years in, it was purely inbound leads from some of the fastest growing startups in Indonesia. And I remember when we were sitting like crying one night over just like how much stuff we had to fix for the next day. It was like, oh, this is what it meant. Like it's, you know when you know, because we're just so overwhelmed with business coming in and friends referring their friends. And then it was like drinking from the fire hose, and that we had just like so much demand for the business. Now, to quantify that, because that's a qualitative thing, YC talks about 30% month-on-month growth. So the way we think about any new business that we launch, any new country, any new business line, is when it launches, it needs to grow 30% month-on-month on whatever the right North Star metric is. If it does, we keep it going. To us, that is product market fit. If it doesn't, we cut it off. And so over the last 9 years, however long we've been alive, we've launched probably 12 or 13 businesses that look like they've grown 30% month-to-month. We've probably launched a total of 30 or 40 that have then failed and we've shut down. So our whole point is to build experimentation frameworks into our day-to-day life and be very good around saying, it's not working, cut it, go build something else. So product market fit feels like 30% month-to-month growth.
Hi, Moses, Andy, thank you for your time. I'm Shadi from Ecosystem. So we're based mostly in Indonesia at the moment, but definitely we talk about expanding regionally as well. I think the question is, how do you decide which country to go first? So you guys did Indonesia very well. How do you decide the one after that? Immediately after that, because we all have capital constraints, time constraints. We have to choose the best next option, right? How did you approach that?
Yeah, so I'll use the greed, fear, team framework again. Part of that greed framework was the customer pulling, in this case, grab. In that, other inputs into that was like TAM, how big it is, how similar it is, and again, XBCG 2x2 framework of like lowest cost, highest impact. So when we looked at different countries in Southeast Asia, we said, which countries were under-penetrated in payments where we thought big TAM, big margins, we had the right to win. And when we said, hey, we exist in Indonesia, Philippines, archipelago nation, poor infrastructure, a lot of similarities, a lot of the families invest and cross-sell to each other. And then we found the right person to run it. But that was our view of to why Philippines next. It just, there wasn't the demand being served like there was in other markets. So that's why Philippines next. And I think the story of Philippines for us is like, being purposeful in that, I think was very lucky. I did it against my board's wishes. So the board said, don't do it, focus. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it anyway, and I'll tell you about it when I succeed. And so I remember the board meeting where I said, so we've launched in the Philippines for the last 6 months, and here's the growth. I remember the board all pinging me and saying, number one, why didn't you do this earlier? And I said, because you guys told me not to. And then number two, they said, we're so glad that you didn't listen to us. So I think the Philippines story has been this nice learning experience of what's the kind of right framework to implement. And then we've kind of done that in other markets to then say, where's the biggest TAM next? And then how do we enter? Knowing that we care about regulators, big families, and then what we need to do to operate. So that'd be my framework.
Thanks, Moses.
We still have 3 more minutes.
Yeah.
Yes,
You have a
lady
question
in the front row.
brilliant answer and great vision as a leader in this space. I want to ask you a little bit more about your vision on sustainability. I love your story, but I think sustainability is a big topic right now. So what is Xendit doing in this area? Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll answer two parts of that. I'll answer by saying a little bit about sustainability, and then I have a more meta thing, which is, as a company, we've chosen, I don't think we can change the world. I think we can change our part of the world, and I think we have also chosen certain things that we care about most as an organization and are pushing that. So in that respect, the kind of passion that we've chosen is a lot about women empowerment. Co-founder Tessa, I think now is one of the very few women unicorn founders who hasn't committed fraud. So it used to be more, but but I think she's therefore a great example, I think, for what I aspire to be as a human, and I think a great example for others. And so I think we've chosen that as part of what we do. So for example, our executive team, I think, is 45% women. Again, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this publicly, but I don't think it's about affirmative action for us. We've hired the best people for the job, but we've purposely taken the time to go find people beyond the normal profiles and see, hey, why are we choosing and why are we selecting? And then we do a ton of things here around women in tech, women entrepreneurs, those kinds of things. So that's where we put a lot of our corporate energy to say, hey, this is where we can make an impact. None of us know enough about sustainability on where the right place is to invest or what we should do directly as a business. But I think on the startup end, on payments end, I think there's things that we can do. So we've chosen that. So then my shorter answer for overall on sustainability, I think, is like our part of the world has a big part to play in where things can go. I'm a personal investor in a bunch of startups looking to solve this, but I don't know the answers. I'm making bets on friends who think they know the answers, who are smarter than me.
Let's make the most of our 1 minute. More question? Yes, the lady on the left side of the stage.
Can you share your experience working with regulators across different countries? Yes, please share your experience working with regulators across different countries in the region. Thank you.
Yeah. I appreciate you asking this. Often I'm asked when I'm in other markets, call it outside Southeast Asia, there's a perception around us, and I think it's a little bit unfounded. I think the way our regulators think about our world is we're much more willing, at least in our experience, have been very willing to think about where do we want our countries to be 5, 10 years from now. And where in Southeast Asia, we went from no computers to straight to mobile phone and mobile first. I think the same thing can be done on payments. We're going to straight to QR or we're skipping over a whole bunch of things. I think regulators have that in mind. So where some Americans or Europeans think in this very incremental way, Southeast Asian regulators think in like, what can we do even better and kind of skip. So that I appreciate about regulators. Now, I think a lot of the challenges are well known and documented, so I don't think I need to harp on about that. But I think one thing that is unique in our experience is there's been plenty of people that have come, dropped money, been bad actors, get bad press, leave, go home. I think what's unique about us, what we say to regulators, I think what we've proven over time is we're here to stay. We're not going to come in from another country, dump money, do bad things and leave. We're going to be here, we're going to stand to scrutiny, we're going to be here for a long time, and we're happy to do that. And so I think that trust then engenders, okay, let's talk about what we can do together and where countries want to go. So I think longer approach, because there's been friends who've gotten licenses faster, there've been people who do things that we can't. But for us, it's been, hey, we want to make sure that we're building long-term relationships with everyone, because we want to be here. And I'm thinking over a 30, 40-year period, however long it takes for 650 million people to become next biggest thing in the world. So.